The loss weighed heavily on Turles' shoulders. He was slowly taking in Goku's words. Hyperbolic Time Chamber. They had that the whole time? Yet for some reason they were reluctant to use this remarkable thing. You mean to tell me, Kakarot, that we had access to this? And it's now that you're telling us about it? He sounded harsher than he meant to, but the demise of Amon, as you could probably imagine, was taking a toll on him. But Goku seemingly felt that this would be the case. Well, it can be pretty taxing on your mind, especially if you go in alone. Vegeta shook his head in frustration. Stop your blabbering, you two! Me and the boy will go in first. If we're lucky, we won't need any of you weaklings to train afterwards. As strong as the bravado seemed, Turles could feel that he was not the only one whose pride had been wounded in recent days. The prince's arm looked healed up now, but there was still something distressing about him. Like, even though the physical wound had healed, the one up there hadn't. Well, Turles didn't really care. Let him have the first crack at the whip. If Amon had been around, Turles would have gone in with him. But in this case, he instead decided to go into the time chamber with Piccolo, who in turn decided to look for clues regarding androids and Cell. When he came back, they'd go in. Apparently, they had 2 days to play with as well. Before the green man left to go and look for Cell, Turles approached him. Hey, Piccolo. Yeah? Try not to die. The Namekian smirked. It's almost as if you're showing concern. Hey, I just need a sparring partner that can last. That's all. Good luck. Turles looked away. Everyone knew that he was lying to himself and he was really struggling, but no one decided to make a comment here. The concern about his new comrade was kind of understandable after the loss of his most loyal one, but does he really have to wait? Just stay here until Piccolo gets back? Being idle really didn't feel like his thing. So instead of just waiting around on the lookout like a lemon, he decided to go check in on Bulma, Raisin, and Lakusei to see if they could help him with something else, give him something to do. Surely enough, they did. His own scientists had expressed some sadness over the death of Amon, more than he could have expected. Remember, they all worked together for a very long time.
So, the big guy got it. Not good.
Not good at all, Raisin sighed.
He was always easy to provoke. The poor sod.
Lakusei nodded. All right, you two. I'm going to be training hard pretty soon. I need your expertise and, well, a bit of Bulma's to make this prosthetic capable of sustaining the increase in power. It had some malfunctions when I was using Super Saiyan. I cannot afford to have that happen again. Turles wanted them to focus for real this time. There will be more time for grieving later. Or not, if somehow Kakarot and the others are unable to somehow re-enable the Dragon Balls, a feat that, as he expected, they would be able to pull off, but you never know.
It has its limitations, but look what we got here.
Huh? Turles looked at something that they had been examining. It was that fat clown's arm. Oh no, there is no way I'm letting you put that on me! I'd look ridiculous! Vegeta laughs at me enough!
No, mighty Turles, but we can try and reverse engineer this thing. You seriously think we would give this to you wholesale?
Raisin waved his hands in a gesture of apology.
Yeah, you might not be able to drain power like the original, but how this arm is constructed, if we could mimic it, you could maybe actually store the excess power you have within.
All right, but I want it integrated into a proper hand. Not that creepy thing.
Well, the one issue is that we probably will have to implant your whole arms with cybernetics to make it work. This isn't just a replacement jobby.
And I don't have any issues with that. How quickly can you do it? Bulma then entered the room holding baby Trunks. Someone's eager to return to the operating table, huh? The former pirate shook his head. No, it's about giving us more chances against those monsters. I may have gotten a massive increase in power, but I don't want this hand to literally blow in my face. The woman looked at the beans, who seemed rather anxious. I mean, I think we can do it in maybe, 2 days? But this will be an untested prototype, Turles. It's still a risk. Turles looked at her and nodded slowly. I think your sister has already told you, but I'm a risk taker. Bulma sighed loudly. Saiyans, of course you are. All right, brace yourself. Boys, prepare the operating table and find a way to turn that clown arm into a pirate arm.
All right, like I say, you heard what the boss lady said.
Raisin started to quickly examine and take measurements of both limbs.
She's not my boss.
Lakusei muttered to himself, but When he saw Bulma's ice-cold expression,
Yes, of course, whatever you say.
on one hand, pun not intended, Turles would be missing out on the whole Kame House situation with Cell, Piccolo, and later Ten Shinhan. But on the other hand, the procedure may possibly help him greatly get back into the mix. He was naturally given a high dose of anesthetics, which caused him to fade in and out of consciousness. With Piccolo fading but being saved, Cell becoming stronger, Vegeta and Trunks leaving the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, then fighting Cell, who somehow became stronger again, even in his half-awake state, he knew who was responsible for that happening. Why wasn't he more awake for that, you ask? Well, some of his nerves had to literally be replaced with cybernetics in order for the new hand to work, so yeah, Turles is not fully with it right now. And it's not just the palm that was being replaced. Honestly, for Turles, it was like he was getting a whole new arm. Everything had to be reworked and retooled. And even with the genius of Dr. Bulma, Dr. Brief, and the Beans, they were working around the clock to make this happen. And not for it to look like a slightly chubby mechanical clown's arm to boot. There were moments when Turles was debating in his mind whether or not he had made the right call doing all of this. Maybe things would have been different if he hadn't decided to have had the procedure. He would have found another way through hard grit to do the same thing. But honestly, if Vegeta turned out to be the one to blame for Cell getting stronger, then after all that long training, he wouldn't be a challenge for the Prince. He had to keep up with the Prince. What was worrying, however, was the sudden increase in Cell's said power. What was the reason as to the actual power? Sure, Vegeta was the enabler, but what did Cell do? What juice did he drink? If the monster can power up just like that, do they even have any hope of stopping him? There were too many questions, visions of guilt, and his old self-mocking getting in the way. All these stupid, touchy feelings that he was having were haunting him right now. For the longest time, unable to transform, and yet when he could change, he still accomplished absolutely nothing. That was the risk of overthinking emotions, you see. Something that Saiyans should never do. But in this world now, they tend to do it all the time. Life was so much easier back in his mercenary days. After he came back to his senses, he noticed that Piccolo was hanging around, waiting for him to wake up. I messed up. You did? That's unlike you. Well, mostly Vegeta, but me too. You know what the connection is between Cell and the androids? Well, he needed to absorb them and achieve his perfect form. I weakened 17 enough so he had a jump on us and absorbed him. I was played. 18 managed to escape for a while, but then the Bugman convinced this idiot that it could be a real boon and a challenge for him if he achieved his perfect form. Turles blinked twice and moved its new silver fingers. And he just let him absorb the girl? Yup. Trunks tried to stop him, to be fair. Poor kid. Well, I guess all three of us messed up. How are Kakarot and Gohan? How are we still alive? Surely if Cell's perfect, then, well, I wouldn't have woken up. They should be coming out at any moment. And after stomping both Vegeta and Trunks, Cell decided to set up a tournament, hopefully getting a proper challenge, since he didn't get it from the Prince. Tournament? Yeah, to challenge everyone. He's given us some time to train. 10 days. 10 days? Does he know what we can achieve during that time? Turles was examining his new hand as he was talking. It was very glossy, silver, very slick. Although still connected to the machinery, it hadn't been fully detached yet. They were still running calibration checks. You haven't seen him now. He's almost unrecognizable, and he was able to beat Vegeta without any effort. Oh, I guess we better give him some hell then, huh, Piccolo?
Not so fast!
It was Tights who was now accompanying Bulma, apparently to see him.
You just had a major procedure done, Turles. At least give yourself a few hours to recover before you're going in hot.
She scolded him slightly. Piccolo nodded. Yeah, I'm kinda with her on this one. Give Goku and Gohan time to come out. Make sure this thing won't explode. Otherwise, what good are you? Turles wasn't happy about this, but, well, they peer pressured him into waiting a moment longer and making sure that he could use his new limb without problem to perform even some basic actions. But yes, it turned out he could. He was even able to let out some simple key attacks in front of the capture core building without any difficulty. or causing any collateral damage. So after saying goodbye to Tights and thanking Bulma, Dr. Briefs and the Beans, he and Piccolo headed toward the lookout for their go. When they arrived, they indeed saw Goku and Gohan exit the chamber, who seemed to be in that weird Super Saiyan-like state, but with no real signs of difficulty. Their faces were quite calm. They brought them up to speed about what had been happening. Krillin was also present, and Turles could absolutely swear that he was uncharacteristically tense. Never mind that, the bald guy was a little bit of an enigma anyway at the best of times. They also discussed the lack of Kami and a possible guardian to replace him, to reinstate the Dragon Balls, which caused Kakarot to just snatch one Namekian just like that. Even for Turles, this felt a little bit extreme. Well, alright, you got this covered. Guess it's our turn, green guy. Piccolo nodded as they entered the time chamber, and that white void was very oppressive at first on first glance. And this was with a partner. They were told that being alone here could cause your mind to break. But yeah, Turles wasn't really up for that challenge. They also had a good amount of supplies, with the Namekian mostly relying on water for sustenance. And the time dilation was apparently a little bit trippy at first. Well, Turles had to catch up to Piccolo, that was his first target, as he was currently the strongest fighter. But he started to make gains to catch up with the Namekian almost immediately. He asked Big Green not to go easy on him, and his training buddy listened out of respect. He was also learning how to utilize his brand new arm. When he was transforming into Super Saiyan, or his false Super Saiyan, he was able to store some excess energy in said arm, being able to power himself up later or use a new attack, which he dubbed Asteroid Mortar. Basically, it's a massive key explosion which was divided into smaller energy missiles after the initial impact. He also became more comfortable, both with his limbs and the forms that he had managed to acquire. The first couple of times, he had to focus on the feelings of helplessness and anger, but later on, it became second nature. Piccolo, on the other hand, was more on the mentor side of things, not really getting much stronger himself. Turles finally understood in this moment why Gohan respected him so much. The Namekian had very strong mentor talent, more so than Kakarot. He then got taught how to use the MasakoX Seppo, or the special beam cannon, as a reward for his good diligence. He in return taught Piccolo the kill driver, a technique he used against him all those years ago. Swings and roundabouts. Overall, for Turles, this was a very decent experience, and time flew by, even in there. Although it was hard to say if they really became stronger out of all of this, without really having any sort of good reference point around, outside of the two of them, they at least became equal in terms of strength. But was it simply Turles catching up to the Namekian, or were they both ready to face Cell, stronger than ever? He also hadn't experienced that weird elevated state that Kakarot or his son had, nor did he figure out how to turn into that bulky version of Super Saiyan that Piccolo had told them about. Apparently though, it seemed overrated, as Trunks didn't really accomplish much in that form. But he had become pretty good in the regular Super Saiyan state, pretty comfortable and effective. And hopefully that would count. Also, thanks to the spare energy in his hand, he was able to experience a second wind during battle after being exhausted in his main body. So it was sort of like a little bit of a salvo, something that no doubt would come in handy during the many fights with the androids. Oh well, better late than never, he thought. After a full year, they exited the chamber, with Turles now rocking a full-on beard. Tights was there to greet them, and the other Saiyans were present as well. They were curious about the gains these two had acquired. They were also focused on cells. To the former pirate's surprise, Vegeta had decided to go in again, with the madman dragging poor Trunks in there too. Was he afraid that Gohan, Kakarot, Piccolo, and now he would have gotten the upper hand now? Or was it something else? Could he not face the others after the mistake that he had pulled? Turles was no psychologist, but in a very brief interaction that they had before he went in, the prince looked almost defeated. It was only after the time chamber exit that the Saiyan captain could watch television and finally see Cell's original broadcast. Piccolo was right. He was almost unrecognizable from the time they met. There were the Frieza genes on display, taking the front seat. He seemed extremely sure of himself too. But did he know about the chamber? Hard to say. Turles wondered how many traits this thing had inherited from them. But he also knew that he couldn't give up. There was a chance for Amon to return. He still had to be avenged though, and Turles would very gladly break that annoyingly perfect jawline to do it. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now.